I can't say I'm shocked this happened. I can say it sends a message about the Jets going forward and what their plans are. Welcome, folks, to another live stream. Today we are covering the Dalvin Cook news as he was cut by the Jets just hours ago, and we're also going over Week 18 of the NFL season for those of you still in the fantasy playoffs. So any questions you end up having, compile those in the chat. I see we have MA Football Guy here, or Andy, saying, Corey, thanks for your dynasty advice, man. Lamar is not taken either. Lamar, not a bad move, obviously. Well below 30, so not a bad investment at all. Before we get going today, we do have links in the description I'd love for you to go and check out. We have our Armchair Fantasy Football merchandise. We've got high-quality sweatshirts in the mid-30s. Pretty good investment. If you're not satisfied with your order, you can return it in 30 days. We're going to try and do some giveaways with clothing down the road. Hopefully, I'll be sporting some merch pretty soon. I plan to get some. And we also have a Discord link in the chat. So, MA Football Guy or Andy is in the chat right now referencing something that I did not answer on YouTube, but I actually have a special free Discord where I will connect with a lot of you on fantasy topics in live time. So, if you have any lingering questions that pop up, I have a general chat. We've got start-sit chats on a week-by-week basis, possible trade proposal chats, and many other things to go over. So merchandise and free Discord links are in the description. Make sure you join the Armchair Army. That is how you're going to get your questions answered 10 times as fast. I respond to everything on YouTube, but I'm faster on Discord. Brian's in here. Brian, how you doing? Says, Corey, been a while. What's the play with Davante Adams? Is he even worth a first rounder in a redraft? In a better quarterback situation, he might be. Brian, right now, I think he's a mid to high 2, depending on where you sit in the draft. But right now, with a hurt Jimmy Garoppolo and Aiden O'Connell in there, I honestly think he's probably a high 2. If somebody floats over there, I mean, let's say Gardner Minshew all of a sudden becomes the Raiders quarterback next year in some random turn of events, maybe I believe that Davante Adams has a bit more, value. But for the most part, yeah, it's a hard life for Davante Adams owners right now. I had to stick it out with him. He did show out in championship weekend for some of you last week, but for the most part, I know how it feels. Let's cut to the chase here. We'll talk about Dalvin Cook for a bit. If you folks, again, have any Week 18 Dynasty Fantasy Football or really any fantasy football questions at all, pop those in the chat below, and I will get to them as soon as possible. Also, make sure you drop a like on the stream. Subscribe if you haven't already. We are 11 subscribers away from 900. Thank you all so much for the support as we go into 2024. T-shirt's awesome. MA Football Guy knows what he's talking about. He's got some of the Armchair Fantasy Football merch. Let's cut to Dalvin. He's cut by the Jets. See what I did there? Could have made up to $7 million on this one-year contract that would have made him crack the top 10 in terms of payment for running backs. Just $1.08 million in guaranteed money. It's the majority of what he did see. Now, why mention this? Well, in my opinion, and in most opinion, it shows a team's dedication to a player. A big factor in going and getting somebody like Dalvin Cook, who is hot off of a pretty efficient season, by the way, with the Minnesota Vikings. A big reason they go out and do that is because Breece Hall just got off the ACL injury, right? We weren't sure how he was going to look. Well, newsflash, Breece Hall looks phenomenal, and as a result, Dalvin Cook maybe took a bit more of a back seat than what we were anticipating. We look at the Jets in general and what happened this year. I mean, I was saying last year, and I guess you can blame me. You could blame me, Corey Sparks. I jinxed it. I said the quarterback situation couldn't get any worse. Well, that's because, of course, they went out and got Aaron Rodgers, and I thought surely he would do better than what we saw from Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson technically improved year over year, but the plan was to not have Zach Wilson at quarterback, right? That was not the plan. That was not what we came in understanding what was going to happen. In general, we realized once Aaron Rodgers went down, there'd be a hefty focus on the run game. And as a result, going out and getting Dalvin Cook to supplement Breece Hall was the plan. Well, Breece Hall, after getting limited usage in the first couple of weeks, took off, right? He was the main guy before we knew it. 10 rushes here, 4, 12. Around this range in the season is where Breece Hall went on Twitter and started to complain about lack of usage. But again, they were really babying his usage. And then what we got to know from him in his rookie year, the pass catching upside. I mean, 12 receptions for 16 targets is actually pretty insane. So that's what we're kind of looking for, and that's what we're seeing with Breece Hall. Again, the big question was somebody who could have made as much as $7 million out of the backfield in Dalvin Cook. How much is he going to be involved? That's what we were asking ourselves. The answer, not very much. The other answer, someone who was pretty prolific for the Vikings not too long ago, he wasn't happy. He wasn't efficient. He sure as heck was not fantasy relevant by any stretch of the imagination. Not very involved in the pass-catching game either. Not really getting a whole lot of snaps. We look at Dalvin Cook's usage. These are pretty ugly numbers. I can't say there were many who expected him to be running back 72, but here we are, right? Never cracked 50 rushing yards. I don't even know if he ever cracked 50 yards in total. 59 yards right here, the very first week. And again, that was really when they were babying Breece Hall coming back in. So yeah, the main point there, Dalvin Cook gets cut because of the investment that the Jets have in Breece Hall and because of the confidence, I think, that the Jets have in somebody like Breece Hall coming off the ACL injury. He looks a lot better now. And now, folks, I do want to open the floor up to you guys. I know that my fantasy playoffs are done, but that does not mean yours are by any means. So if you have any questions going into Week 18, now is the time to pour them in. While you're thinking of those questions, I'm going to jump into Sleeper and cook up some good matchups. If you're teetering between a couple of players, feel free to ask me on those. Otherwise, we're going to go over people that you should not be sleeping on in the Sleeper app. Again, see what I did there? I'm punny today, guys. I'm punny. We're going to go in here. I will have the chat open, continuously monitoring it. First, we go at the quarterback position. I'm going to filter by absolutely nothing and leave everybody available. One that I think is pretty interesting to watch, obviously, Josh Allen. Make sure he's healthy. Stinger, not a major issue. He had an injury around the neck. Justin Fields, I think, has a pretty good matchup. Quarterback 17, obviously impacted by the injury where he missed 4 weeks. For the most part, we're pretty pleased with Justin Fields' production. Not as much rushing upside this year, but still one of the best rushing quarterbacks in the league. He's going up against a Green Bay team that has struggled against mobile quarterbacks. If we look back at a guy who I feel like the hype train has kind of died now, but he's still had a pretty good stretch there named Tommy DeVito. He was able to show off how mobile he is against Green Bay. I don't know if they're going to have a QB spy on him. I don't know if they're going to have two people with eyes on him. The main thing is, if Green Bay is anything like they were on the defensive end under Joe Barry a couple of weeks ago, Justin Fields could definitely thrive, and there is no doubt in my mind about that. So make sure you keep an eye on Justin Fields. We go to the backfield. Alvin Kamara out is big news. The fact that it's already being declared this early. Saying day-to-day, he should be. I'm wondering then, because, division's kind of on the line here. That shouldn't be accurate, so maybe he is in. We rolled down a little bit. I really like Rachaad White. Judging by how he has performed this year, there's really no reason for you to not start Rachaad White. No, he hasn't been the most efficient on the ground. 3.6 yards per carry is really not something to get excited about. But what is something to get excited about is, again, the pass-catching involvement. Not only does he have 66 targets, he's caught 90% of said targets, well over 1,000 all-purpose yards, actually on track to surpass 1,500. The 9 touchdowns don't hurt either. I see we have more questions in the chat here, so we will get to those. We have Kevin, a.k.a. K Dizzle, saying Fantasy League should be over after this past week. Took home second ship in 5 years. Can now call me the champ and the double champ. Oh, Kevin's going on a little rampage here for sure. Yeah, some leagues are still doing Week 18, so I kind of just want to serve the fantasy community, if you will, in that regard. Mine are done. Angelo's saying, not much to ask until the practice reports start coming out. Dynasty fantasy football is something I'm probably going to be shifting more towards, folks, just because we do have the NFL draft, and believe it or not, about 3.5 months, I'll start to do some rookie profiling, looking over names like Penix, like, of course, Marvin Harrison Jr., your household names, right? J.J. McCarthy, if we're digging a little deeper in the quarterback discussion. Those names just come to mind because I've been watching the college football playoff. Obviously, Caleb Williams and so much more, but we'll really try and dive in and see who's going to fit where. We'll do some rankings, and, of course, if there is anything you guys end up having questions about or want me to produce content on, you can always throw those in as well. Kevin saying, double flex, I had Hurts, Breece Hall, Alvin Kamara, CeeDee Lamb, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam Laporta, Chris Olave, T. Higgins, Cleveland's defense, and Harrison Butker, 12-man PPR. Yeah, you're going to win a lot when you have a lineup like that. So back-to-back champions. Congrats to you, Kevin. we're going to get the chat up on the screen here since you guys are starting to pour in. Again, I'm Corey. Make sure you jump in, leave a like, subscribe if you haven't already. We're 11 away from 900, and most importantly, leave your questions. Let me know what you have questions about dynasty-wise, anything at all really related to fantasy football. If you've got questions about the Breece Hall situation where you think, or not Breece Hall, Dalvin Cook, and we've already got the prediction here. I think Dalvin's going to the Cowboys to pair with Pollard in the playoffs. A lot of people are thinking that specifically with the coaching background as well. Angelo's saying Brock Bowers should be another good tight end. Yeah, I'm curious to see because the last time we saw a tight end go super high was Kyle Pitts, 4th overall. You could make the claim he is not of that value, but he's had some bright moments. MA Football Guy sharing his lineup. Again, folks, any fantasy questions you have at all, just went over the Dalvin Cook news, and I'm also going over if you are playing in Week 18, players you should be looking at. Plenty of Dynasty Fantasy Football to come. We look at some other matchups here. I mean, if Jamar Chase is on your team, it's kind of hard to ever sit him. I do think that he has a very tough matchup against Cleveland coming up. I mean, the proof is in the pudding here. Cleveland, to my knowledge, still has, the toughest passing defense in the entire league. 166 passing yards per game allowed. Chase is the primary guy. You could make an argument that Jake Browning has done his job and then some as a more than serviceable backup to Joe Burrow. CeeDee Lamb, it's really just going to be game script. I mean, wide receiver 1.5 PPR. The guy's been an absolute stud. Was tracking towards 2,000 yards for a while, career highs in receptions, in targets, in receiving yards, in touchdowns, in just about everything. Yards per target as well. He's doing a lot after the catch. Going up against Washington's secondary, we're on the other end of the spectrum. One of the worst passing defenses in the entire league. If this is a blowout and the Cowboys start running the ball, obviously different story. But they're fighting for a division. I would not doubt it if they lay the hammer down on the Commanders. MA Football Guy saying, hopefully I can win one. MA Football Guy rolling with Dak Eckler Gibbs, Sun God. I love that name. Jaden Reed, Njoku, Hall, Jets defense, and Moody over with the San Francisco 49ers. Kevin saying, is it crazy for me to think Cleveland can make the Super Bowl? They just have an elite defense. Imagine a playoff game at Baltimore versus Joe Flacco. I think Ravens fans would be shaking. Already won there too. Yeah, I mean, my big thing with the playoffs is I want to see revenge tours. So we have the potential, right, if the Packers do beat my Bears this weekend, of Mike McCarthy with Dallas going up against the Packers, who he coached for a very long time in the Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre eras. And then we also have the potential for Joe Flacco against his old team and the Ravens, who he won a Super Bowl with, while he's playing for a division rival. There was another one. Matt Stafford, if everything stands the way it is right now as a member of the Rams, could go against his old team that he spent a decade with in the Detroit Lions. There's a lot that could go very, very interestingly. Even in just the first round of the playoffs, yeah, I want to see some of those revenge tour matchups for sure. Andy's saying, just grabbed Kraft on that team as Njoku's only forecasted for 6 points. Got to look at weather conditions this time of year as well, especially for those teams in the Midwest. Kevin, not crazy at all. That's my AFC pick. If I had to roll right now, it'd probably be chalk with either Baltimore or I was going to say Miami, but they just blew out Miami. So barring any injuries, pretty confident that Baltimore locks it down. The Bills are getting pretty hot. They were 6-6 and people weren't sure they were going to make the playoffs. And now they're going to try and lock up the AFC East and could be dangerous. Kevin saying, as a Bears fan, what do you want them to do? I believe in Fields personally. All right, Kevin, you opened up this can of worms. Folks, don't let this stop you from putting any Week 18 fantasy football-related questions in at all. But here's my take on the Bears situation, right? You have the number 1 overall pick, and I believe right now with a 7-9 record, you have the number 10 overall pick. In my opinion, with what Justin Fields has done so far, he's been adequate enough and has shown enough flashes, plenty of flashes, to the point where you don't spend that level of draft capital on Caleb Williams. Specifically because, and I've been seeing this stat all week with Packers fans, Jordan Love has 30 passing touchdowns, almost 4,000 yards. In his first year as a starter, he already has more passing yards and more passing touchdowns than any Bears quarterback in history. For whatever reason, the people in Chicago do not know how to develop a quarterback into something phenomenal without a lot of help and natural talent from day one, right? In my opinion, going into this year, I either wanted to stick with Fields if this whole Panthers thing happened, when people were starting to say, oh, the Panthers are 0-4, right? I either wanted that, or I wanted them to go after an established talent. Somebody, like a Joe Flacco, who has already learned good habits. So in my opinion, Kevin, that number 1 overall pick needs to be traded back to a quarterback-needy team. We're talking maybe the Patriots with the whole Bailey Zappi and Mac Jones debacle going on. Those two have been trading blows, and neither look good at all. But in all honesty, I want to trade back maybe to the Commanders. Do they not believe in Sam Howell after 1 year? I don't know. But I want to trade back, get Justin Fields the 1-2 punch of DJ Moore and Marvin Harrison Jr., possibly what could immediately be one of the best wide receiving cores in the league. Cole Kmet's been a top 10 tight end for the last couple of years. The defense currently leads the entire league in interceptions just because of the production we've seen from them for the last month and a half. I am completely okay with them trading back and investing in a quarterback. Trading back for a team that's going to go invest in a quarterback. And who knows, if you make a deal with the Patriots or the Commanders and they don't stack up assets quick enough, maybe we get another situation next year where you've got the number 1 overall pick again, because you're going to trade for that team's first rounder the next year. That's what happened with the Panthers. The Bears traded the number 1 overall pick to Carolina, and the Panthers ended up having the number 1 overall pick. So the Bears give up number 1 overall in 2023. They get number 1 overall in 2024. They get DJ Moore, who's having a career year. They get Tyreek Stevenson, who's having a phenomenal year as a rookie. He leads all rookie defensive backs in interceptions with 4. He had 2 this last game. You get a phenomenal, so far, offensive lineman in Darnell Wright. There's a lot to like about what they've done so far, and then you get some late rounders as well, right? So I want to invest, trade back. Somebody's going to want Caleb Williams or Drake May at 1/2. Convince them that the Bears maybe are thinking of that and capitalize on that investment. Kevin saying, what do you want the Bears to go after? O-line? Yeah, O-line late. If they keep that 10th overall pick, go after O-line. I have to do some prospect diving. I'm fantasy-oriented, so I go after the skill position players. But no, I want Marvin Harrison Jr., and then I want to build up the O-line. Fields holds onto the ball way too long, but I also just want to invest in somebody who can hold it down up front. Lucas Patrick hasn't been the best. He exerts a lot of effort, but he's also, we've seen some people blow by him. Yeah, I would say in general, we go after somebody on the O-line. Front seven's been phenomenal. I would hardly touch the defense. I'd rather just let them develop right now. Do you think Bryce Young is this bad, or are the Panthers just that bad? Because he was solid at Bama with good wide receivers. All he had was Gibbs. Or with bad wide receivers, all he had was Gibbs. I want the Pats to either trade back and take Jaden Daniels or just take Drake May. Yeah, the Pats need somebody specifically with the spot that franchise is in right now with a pretty good defense. They need someone to just lead the offense and be able to manage the game. There's a reason they made the playoffs a couple of years ago with Mac Jones, just handing the ball off to guys like Damian Harris, right? And Ramondre Stevenson before he really broke out. You don't need to go pass heavy to make the playoffs right now as the Pats, but you do need someone who's competent and not making a ton of bad decisions down the field. Yeah, Jaden Daniels would be great. Drake May would be great. Those are the 2 more polished products. Obviously, Caleb Williams, too. Some people are getting upset about the attitude, the crying after the games. I don't know, right? But do you think Bryce Young is this bad, or are the Panthers just that bad? I would say, yeah, I don't think Bryce Young's horrible. I mean, we saw the potential against Green Bay and Joe Barry's defense. He threw for north of 300 yards. He had a couple of passing touchdowns. Folks, if you're just jumping in, we're answering any and all of your Week 18 fantasy football questions. Kevin asked me about the Bears situation at pick numero uno for the 2nd year in a row, and I'm just answering it. But yeah, any other questions you guys have, we're kind of just talking shop here. I don't think Bryce Young's that bad. His best receiver for a while has been Jonathan Mingo. The wide receiving core in general has not been great. I think he's been put in a situation where he's had to throw the ball a ton. This is baptism by fire when your team only wins 2 ball games and you're entering January, and he hasn't been surrounded by a ton of success. Frank Reich gets fired mid-season. The Panthers seem to be kind of shooting themselves in the foot repeatedly. I almost want to just scrap the first year and not analyze Bryce Young yet. Speaking from experience, as a Bears fan, watching this team not really have a wide receiving core the last couple of years, I refuse to judge someone who really, in my opinion, doesn't have a lot of help around them. All right, Andy's saying, don't do this, Corey. I'd love to have the first overall pick and see my Patriots take Marvin Harrison Jr. Marvin Harrison Jr. would be great. MA football guy, but you need someone to throw to him as well. So then you probably sit back and take J.J. McCarthy in rounds 3 or 4 or something like that. I'm not a big Bailey Zappi believer. I'm sorry. Mac Jones being sat halfway through his 3rd year with the 4th and final year of his rookie contract coming up is not the best news either. Penix in the last half of the 1st or 2nd and keep... Oh, okay. Penix would be another one as well. We need a number 1 wide receiver. The Bears don't. Yeah, but Marvin Harrison Jr. and DJ Moore would be something, man. But no, I know. There's definitely a need there. Trying things out with Devontae Parker for a bit. Kendrick Bourne looked good before he got hurt. Juju Smith-Schuster. Demario Douglas out of Liberty, I believe, has some pretty good potential. He's heated up back half of the season. But yeah, the Bears are in a weird spot, right? They could win 8 games this year and still have the number 1 overall pick just because of that deal with the Panthers. All right, folks, any other fantasy questions you've got? I'm just kind of going over matchups here. We look down at Jalen Waddle, monitoring that injury ruled out for week 17. Obviously, it's only Tuesday right now. Injury reports will come out in the next day or two. So yeah, I mean, another 1,000-yard season. He's been phenomenal. The targets weren't there at the beginning, but with Tyreek Hill kind of getting bruised up, we've got that aspect. Division on the line should be interesting. Buffalo has shirted up on defense. More vulnerable matchups. Yeah, this is a huge one. Rashee Rice has been breaking out on pace for a 1,000-yard season, despite not a whole lot of targets until halfway through the year. And going against, again, a weak opposition, the LA Chargers allowing north of 256 passing yards per game. I like Rashee Rice a lot. Well-rounded player. He's another one in Dynasty, unless I say unless. It's probably going to happen. If the Chiefs go out and invest in another wide receiver, obviously the value could dip for Rashee Rice, but I personally think he's showing wide receiver 1 potential. He's not there yet. But first-year guy out of SMU, he's showing out right now. Showing out in fantasy, too. All right. Kevin's saying, I'm a big fan of that Brisker guy y'all got on defense. Yeah. Oh, my gosh, dude. He's everywhere. Kyler Gordon is everywhere. Yeah, Jaquan Brisker is who you're talking about. I mean, that's one of those Isaiah Simmons archetypes. So he could play safety, he could play linebacker, he could crash in blitz, he can drop back in coverage. He is your good old-fashioned, and I say that because there's not that many around right now, defensive Swiss Army knife. He is all over the field. Kyler Gordon, one of the better coverage guys as well. Yeah, Jalen Johnson is going to need to get paid, but he's been our lockdown cornerback 1. Bears are in the playoffs if Fields doesn't get hurt. They went 2-2 with a cupcake schedule when he was gone. I think the Bears are in the playoffs if they don't blow double-digit leads to, who was it? The Broncos, Lions, and Browns in the 4th quarter. Then I think they're in the playoffs. But yeah, Fields going down for 4 games didn't help. I think they stayed afloat just fine, 2-2. They didn't look as great as they do now. The defense really found its footing week 8, week 9, and now here we are, right? He reminds me of Jabril Peppers. That's a great comparison. Again, somebody who can do it all, athletic, downhill rusher, can drop back in coverage, great awareness. Yeah, Jaquan Brisker is one of my favorite players on that team right now. Lions' loss was very tough. Fumbles, in general, 4th quarter turnovers, stale drives, 3-and-outs. That's something I have grown way too accustomed to as a Bears fan. MA football guy saying, I would love Pop and, yeah, I would love Pop Douglas and Marvin Harrison Jr. and hopefully have a new head coach. Just kidding. I know you guys are in almost as funny a spot as we are. I think Matt Eberflus saved his job. He's a defensive-oriented coach. I didn't love him at the beginning of the year, but at the end of the day, Matt Eberflus has a team that has won 5 of their last 7 games. They've won a couple divisional games in a row. They almost put themselves in a playoff spot just a year after being the worst team in football. Yeah, I don't have a whole lot of complaints about Matt Eberflus. Mr. Screen-happy Luke Getsy, our offensive coordinator, on the other hand, that's a different bone to pick. Kevin saying, Pat's made me realizing N'Keal. Oh, Pats released N'Keal and benched Mac, made the playoffs when they were playing. Yeah, I mean, the Pats have gone through some interesting scenarios over the course of the last few years. They still have not won a playoff game since Tom Brady left. Andy, I know you're not going to like that fact. Oh, Pats made a mistake releasing N'Keal. I mean, N'Keal Harry was a good raw talent, but he was even on the Bears. He's great in contested situations. He can go up and moss somebody, but I've seen him get separation on so many guys, and then the corner just closes the gap. He doesn't have breakaway speed. Yeah, so that's that. I hope that answered your question. We can go back here. Keep talking to me about the Bears. I'll take it. But yeah, Rashee Rice, really good matchup. I think wide receiver 1 potential. There's a dynasty target if I've ever seen one. One of my favorite dynasty targets, Jackson Smith and Jigba. If I could spell. There we go. Is it 2 X's? Jackson Smith. Oh, there's no S. Somebody who we've really seen more output as of late. You know, he's had some down days, not the most consistent. We've got a game in week 12 against San Francisco's tough defense with just 3 targets. We've got a game in week 17 with only 1 target. A couple of touchdowns sprinkled here and there. The big reason I like Jackson Smith and Jigba, along with the fact that he's really picked up steam the second half of this season, is Tyler Lockett is getting older, but he still takes up a lot of volume. So when he's gone, in theory, that's got to go to somebody else. And I think Smith and Jigba could take over that slot spot, or he could at least just line up opposite of DK Metcalf. I mean, yeah, he's hauled in the most catches, and he has the most targets on the year, does Tyler Lockett, and I believe he's 31. He will be 32 next season. Jackson Smith and Jigba, and this is kind of, for those of you wondering what the Dynasty content's going to look like, I'm going to pick a player for the most part, and if you guys want me to do it a different way, by all means let me know in the live chat or in the comment section. I'll pick a player, kind of talk about how I feel they're picking up steam or are going to be in a better situation next year. We will have a much better idea once the NFL draft is done, of course, because maybe the Seahawks go and get a wide receiver, right? But then I'll go over and look at the situation, and I'll say, well, I see Tyler Lockett's 31 years old. This would make sense to me if he were to start to either get a decrease in usage or leave or retire. You don't see a lot of 32-year-old wide receivers in the NFL. I'll go and look at contracts, which I don't believe he's a free agent, but I could be very wrong. Yeah, so he's actually locked down through 2025. Potential out going into 2024. So he could leave. I mean, you can retire whenever you want, right? So that's kind of how I'll be looking at things. Looking at the future by talking about who I feel got hot up down the stretch and, you know, the context of the team. I'm always a big advocate for that. How are the surrounding pieces doing? How are those moves going to impact what's going to go on with this player? I think there's a lot of volume to go around should Tyler Lockett leave. I'm going to have a magnifying glass on that, man, because if he leaves, I'm seeing a 1,000-yard season for one of the best college prospects in a while in Jackson Smith and Jigba. I say that with an asterisk because, yeah, there's another Ohio State guy who looks pretty good as well. All right, we've got Ben Johnson has to be the most sought-after person for the head coaching spot right now. Yeah, Lions offensive coordinator. With what they have going on right now, the consistency and the usage with not just Amon-Ra St. Brown, but with Sam Laporta taking off out of Tight End University in Iowa, with Josh Reynolds, with Khalif Raymond doing well. There's a lot going on there, and they still have that dual backfield, if you will. You've got Jahmyr Gibbs and you've got David Montgomery tearing it up. MA Football Guy saying Rice and Ayuk only forecasted for 6 points apiece. I'm rolling out Godwin and Nico playing for third. Nico Collins has been the primary target for Houston. So if he's healthy and if CJ Stroud is healthy with the division on the line, I would like to think they stick to their guns. Watch out for Dalton Schultz. He's a few catches away from an incentive as well. There's a bonus. I believe he needs 4 or 5 catches to hit that. So for you player props bettors, there you go. There's a few of those this week, obviously. Kevin saying, do you think Trubisky's still there if it weren't for the double doink? No, he wasn't really somebody who was moving the needle. I see the same thing in the Steelers offense, which maybe that's not a fair comparison because the Steelers offense under Matt Canada has looked horrible. But I see someone who is not throwing down the field with a whole lot of conviction, who is hitting checkdowns with 3rd and 17 or 3rd and super long. I don't think there's enough aggressiveness there. If there's one thing I do like about Fields outside of his athletic ability, it's the fact that he is willing to go vertical with it. So no, I don't think the double doink. I mean, maybe in a different reality, if we won the Super Bowl, Trubisky's still hanging around, but there were a lot of people on defense to pay. That's why Khalil Mack is gone. Akeem Hicks got too old. I mean, even Eddie Jackson, I think, is on his way out. Lockett is looking like Kentucky Fried Chicken. Like, yeah, I mean, he is older, but he still looks pretty good in my opinion. We've got somebody who is almost on pace for a 1,000-yard season. Who do you think wins Houston at Indy game Saturday night? Winner is in the playoffs, right? Yeah, CJ Stroud, somebody who, myself included, I was saying CJ Stroud was not going to be very good. I was calling him, you could look at my preseason power rankings, saying he's going to be the worst quarterback in the league. He looked horrified in preseason, and my friends, that is why you don't pay too much attention to preseason. And then you have Gardner Minshew, who's never really had a fair shot. You know, he starts his career in Jacksonville, who ends up getting the first overall pick, so then they immediately go and get Trevor Lawrence. He's been jumping around. He was on the Eagles behind Jalen Hurts. He's not going to have a future there. Hurts is, I believe, younger than him. So, yeah, here we are. Minshew against Stroud. I think I'm going to go with... I'm going to go with the Colts. Healthy Jonathan Taylor. Gardner Minshew's got a decent amount of experience, and I think the Colts defense is looking better, not by much, than Houston. Houston's secondary's been torched a lot this year. I could see Michael Pittman going off. It's going to be close, though. That could go either way. But yes, winner is in the playoffs. What a terrible contract for Seattle to have with Lockett. Dude is so old. I mean, Lockett's one of those people, Kevin, who he doesn't take a lot of contact. There's a reason he hasn't been hurt a whole lot in his career. If we look here. Tyler Lockett, one of the most durable players in the entire league, and that's not by accident. Yeah, missed one game. I think he's missed 3 games his entire career because I believe in 2022 we switched to the 17-game season. Yeah, he doesn't take a lot of contact. He will fall to the turf before taking contact, and if that means giving up an extra yard, that's fine, but here he is, right, in 2024 as a 31-year-old, still as the wide receiver 2 for his team and getting the most targets. So that's why Tyler Lockett, I think, maybe was able to swindle his way, I don't know what his agent said, into this contract. But yeah, wide receiver until they're 33 years old, getting a base salary of $15 million. That's something. And this is something you guys are going to see a lot of. We're going to be talking about contracts, teams' investments to certain players, because that helps us determine, just like we talked about with Delvin at the beginning of this live stream, that helps determine the kind of commitment a team has to somebody. I'm going to take someone who's making $20 million a year a lot more serious at the same position than someone making a veteran's minimum, right? So, yeah, that could be why. Prey's in here saying W. What's going on, Prey? Let me know if you got any questions going into week 18. Kevin saying OSU's wide receiver room was insane. Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, Jackson Smith, and Jigba. Got Maserati Marv. I mean, look at LSU as well, right? They had Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Terrace Marshall Jr., who should not be slept on. I believe he's still over in Carolina, and a few others. So there's that. Andy's saying Calvin Ridley or what does that say? Pick up Jaden Reed. I'm not picking up Jaden Reed against the Bears defense. Bears defense, again, has the most interceptions. This is not me saying the Bears are going to win, but they have the most interceptions in the entire league, and the Packers' wide receiving core is the youngest in the entire league. I think there's more variability there. Calvin Ridley's been getting a lot more usage, and Andy, we also have the benefit of knowing that Calvin Ridley is going to get a lot more chances due to the situation in Jacksonville right now. Yes, I am referring to the injuries. Zay Jones might be back. Christian Kirk obviously will not be, and Christian Kirk was the wide receiver 1 before he left. This is a 1,000-yard wide receiver from last year. Somebody who is also being paid a lot. And it is no coincidence that Calvin Ridley has really picked things up since Christian Kirk went down. That volume has to go somewhere. He's your go-up-and-get-it guy. Boom. There's the consistency. There's the targets we've been looking for. And all things considered, Ridley's had a pretty good year. I mean, you can only ask for so much when somebody hasn't played football in, almost 2 calendar years? Almost a 1,000-yard season, 7 touchdowns. I'm going Ridley over Reed, against Tennessee especially. Yeah, I definitely am. Tennessee, middle of the pack secondary. Their offense doesn't hold on to the ball very long. Yeah. MA football guy saying, I'm not a zappy guy either. You didn't upset me at all. Yeah, they got to get a quarterback. You know that. I know that. I think everybody knows that the number 1 priority for the Patriots right now is QB. As long as Zappy doesn't go out and throw for 6 touchdowns and 700 yards, I don't think too many people are going to be convinced, right? Kevin saying, do you think the Bears win this week? It's a different Bears team than week 1. I actually went to that game where they lost 38-20 to the Packers. The defense is phenomenal. The linebackers that they spent so much money on in KJ Edwards and Tremaine Edmonds are looking phenomenal. Tyreek Stevenson is no longer getting burnt. He is looking like our second strongest corner. Yeah, I think the Bears make it close. It is in Lambeau, and Green Bay has to make the playoffs. The Bears actually size up with Green Bay very well. Again, one of the best defenses of the last month and a half against the youngest wide receiving core in the league. And then on the other end, Green Bay's offense has looked phenomenal. The Bears' offense has looked lackluster, but they picked it up a little bit as of late, and Green Bay's defense has been horrible. So, okay Bears offense against horrible Green Bay defense, and then great Green Bay offense against great Bears defense. I think Green Bay wins by a field goal. I would not doubt if it flips the other way, but playoffs on the line. Jordan Love's dealing, not making a lot of mistakes. If he doesn't make the mistake, I think Green Bay walks away with it, especially with the home field advantage. Brian saying, of course, Adams would go off while I'm in a loser's bracket. Yeah. I feel your pain, my friend. He screwed over a couple of my teams. I'll be picking first next season in my family league. Tyreek Hill is an automatic 1-0. Justin Jefferson's a lot younger. I know he just got hurt. Depending on the quarterback situation in Minnesota, which we will likely know by the time you draft, I would like Justin Jefferson. I could see Jamar Chase, Tyreek Hill, Christian McCaffrey. In my opinion, there is not a definitive 1 overall right now. There is not a definitive 1.01. Those names I just listed off are in that group, though. Kevin saying, at least we nailed the Gonzalez pick for the Patriots. Bill can draft corners. That he can. Defense is looking great. Matthew Judon's been thriving the last couple of years. No complaints there, right? Yeah, so there is that. But Brian, I would say Jamar Chase, Christian McCaffrey, Justin Jefferson, Tyreek Hill are all acceptable picks. Tyreek Hill is starting to run out, though. I mean, the shelf life has to be leaving pretty soon, or he has to be getting towards the end of his shelf life pretty soon. Again, a wide receiver who doesn't take too much contact. He can usually run around it, but I believe Tyreek is about to be 31. He's not much younger than, it's about to be 20, no, excuse me, he's about to be 30. Not much younger than Tyler Lockett, by about 2 years. So next year will be his age 30 season. Yeah, but for Brian, I'm taking, was that Brian? Who asked me that? For Andy, I am taking Calvin Ridley over Jaden Reed. With the matchup and with the usage situation right now, I'm feeling pretty good about that. For sure. All right, folks, keep popping those questions, and I'll probably be on this live stream a little bit longer. Again, I'm Corey. This is Armchair Fantasy Football. We are 11 subscribers away from 900, so make sure you leave a like, make sure you subscribe, and make sure you ask me any questions you have heading into Week 18. If your season's done, it's Dynasty season. We will be breaking down the future. We'll be ranking players. We'll be going over different rookie profiles. We'll be going over free agency. For the next few days, I'm going to be dropping one free agent YouTube short. I did Michael Pittman Jr. yesterday and Josh Jacobs today. So take a look at those overviews. They're like 30 seconds, little tidbit, snackable content that's going to help you get a little bit smarter as we head into the 2024 fantasy football season. Andy saying, I honestly think wide receiver and O-line are just as important as quarterback. Need a new offense more or less. Tyreek said he's retiring once Miami's contract runs out. I think that's next year. I thought I heard that too. So, yeah, I guess he's going to go out with a bang. That's kind of good in my opinion. You don't want to see somebody really have this sharp decline. I'm not the biggest fan of how Peyton Manning went out. He went out and had an MVP season, came back and looked horrible. But, of course, the year he looked horrible, the defense carried him to a championship, right? So there is that. But, all right, so, folks, again, that's kind of the live stream for today. Went over good old Dalvin Cook, cut by the Jets, just a $1.1 million guaranteed cap hit. Really shows this team's investment, in my opinion, in Breece Hall and how he looked towards the latter half of this year especially. Fully recovered from that ACL injury, knock on wood. Lots of pass-catching involvement. We're looking really good there. Kevin saying next year in fantasy, if I have a top 4 pick, I'm going JJ or CD. Yeah, CD Lamb as well. If I have a mid-first, probably taking Breece. Late first, Garrett Wilson or Amon-Ra St. Brown. Amon-Ra St. Brown's been super, super productive. So, folks, any other questions you have rolling into Week 18, feel free to let me know about them. Throw them in the live chat as we get off or the comments as this is archived. Again, new YouTube shorts up every day. Trying to live stream a lot more. If you're still in the playoffs, and you have any dire questions, join the Discord. We've got the link in the description below. Otherwise, have a great night, and I will see you guys in the next one.